Welcome back to the channel. My name's Cody. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. I post every Tuesday and Thursday on my business adventures and how they can help you speed along in yours. Today is actually a question. And I got this question. I've done this for the last 2 weeks. Today's question is from the comment section. And it revolves around how did I raise equity for my first couple real estate deals? You find a deal, maybe you line up the debt, and you're trying to figure out the money down. I talked a lot about this on the multifamily strategy page, which is another YouTube channel that I started. And now I've handed that off to Christian, my business partner, on a couple different ventures. But posted a lot about it there. As far as the equity down on my first deals, I actually didn't raise equity. I raised debt. And there's a couple reasons why I did that. I'll share that here in this video. But for those who don't know, when I got started, I bought a piece of real estate. It was a 12-unit apartment building. I eventually turned it into a 13-unit apartment building with no money out of pocket. Added a tremendous amount of value, got the cash flow up a bit. And in the process, I did that without a single dollar to my name. Didn't have any money that I threw at that deal. I had about $1,600 or so that was spent on an inspection and a $3,000 I had in the bank. So when it came to actually raising that money, to the person who asked this in my comment section on my smaller channel, it came down to I wasn't raising equity. I wasn't bringing on a partner. I was raising debt. And the thought process on that deal, you talk about deal debt equity, which is on MFS's page. It's how we do everything that we do, is it has to be a cash flow positive deal. I started with a deal. It was 12 units. I negotiated a seller finance debt product, which allowed it to cash flow. And it cash flowed enough to where I could actually borrow the down payment, and I would still cash flow even though I was borrowing at an expensive rate. I borrowed at 12% for that down payment. Now, how I actually came up with the money was a lot of botched pitches. I made a lot of pitches. I messed up all but one. It only takes one to change your life, and that one sure changed mine. But I kept messing up until the point where I figured out how simple it is and what people are looking for when you're making a pitch. You're raising your first little bit of capital. My first capital raise was $125,000. It's easier to raise $125,000 than it is to raise $15,000. And I found it's easier to raise $1 million than it is to raise $125,000. So there's some ease with buying bigger deals because the pitches get more simple. There's a lot more stability in the numbers, which is why it was easier to buy a 12-plex than it would be to buy a duplex if I had truly no money. Now, the clause that made those investors comfortable back before I knew how to articulate it, and this is what you're going to have to be focusing on if you're making your pitch to people that you met along the way, you're trying to get money, and you're trying to borrow it for a down payment and not take on an equity partner. Where's the money going? What's the stability of what backs it? And how are they getting paid? And that's the core of what we've shared at MFS, but because that's more tailored to your question today. But when it comes down to funding a deal, investors care about that. Where's the money going? So I would show a picture on the Google Maps page because you can go around the little street view. What's the stability of it? And then I show a little bit of information on the location and how are they getting paid, and it comes from the cash flow from the tenants. When you're getting started, you're not going to have a track record. You're also probably not going to have a high-paying job. You might. That'd make it easier. But if you don't, you have to show how they're getting paid. And that's why it's easier to raise $1 million than it is to raise $100,000. Because the bigger the deal, typically the more income there is associated with it, which shows more potential income to pay them back. So on my deal, I illustrated, hey, look, we're going to pay these expenses. This is the mortgage. This amount of cash flow is going to be used to make the monthly payment. And my goal is to go earn enough money and be able to pay you back in a year. And I ended up, it took 2. Didn't get done in a year. I had to ask for an extension and pay some fees. The property paid the fees. I had to eventually pay it down. But I got time, and the clause that I put in there, just in case I messed up, and this is the piece that got my deal funded. In the event I couldn't pay him off, which I had never proven that I could, never done it. I was 19 years old. It was the first $125,000 I had ever borrowed. And the clause said that if I didn't pay him back, I would sign over my ownership in the LLC in exchange for not doing the foreclosure process and forcing me to sell. And the reason that investor would be interested in doing that is because they liked my vision for the project. They thought that the rents could go up, which would improve their collateral. They liked the quality of the asset, the location of the asset, and it made it a very easy pitch to say, look, I'm a 19-year-old, at the point, basically a kid. I've got a great opportunity. I'm 90% sure I can execute on it. In the event that I can't, you're going to get a property that's going to cash flow better than it is today. If I can't come up with $125,000 to pay you back, you're going to get this property. And if it does go well, you'll get your 12% rate of return. And this is at a time when interest rates for the commercial loans were 3-4%. So 12% was pretty dang good. And so that's how I ended up raising my first $125,000. To your question, though, it wasn't equity, it was debt. You can take on equity partners, but people are variables. So try and limit the amount of variables you have in your universe. If you've got more questions on the real estate stuff, you can check out Multifamily Strategy YouTube page. I'm not on as many of those videos, but I try and reference it whenever I'm talking about real estate on this page because that was my main business and still is. However, if anybody has gotten this far into the video, still has questions, whether it's real estate related or maybe it's just business related, drop them in the comments. I'm making a point to actually go through the questions and post them here. And if you're new to the channel, again, hit subscribe and check out some of my older videos. I try and post every single Tuesday and Thursday to help people like you go a little bit further and a little bit faster in your business. I'm definitely not the biggest fish out there, but I've been through the ringer a few times and I like to share my adventures. So I appreciate the support, and I'll see everybody on Thursday.